Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 51 of a year of change. Today we're sort of going to start off our new format, I guess we could call it, by bringing up a topic that I mentioned yesterday, just as an example, and it just sort of got me thinking that probably a good topic to start with, and that is a fat tax. There are a number of it's one of those arguments that sort of keeps coming around every few months. Inevitably, some government decides that they want to add a fat tax, and they sort of go through all the logistical stuff and try to figure out if it will work or not. And we had ours here in Canada back in February of 2015. It happened again earlier in October and stuff like that. Basically, what it is, the government looks at what they consider unhealthy foods. So, soft drinks, junk food, chips, cookies, candies, cakes, stuff like that. And their proposal is that they impose an additional tax on it. It's usually very small, like 1 cent an ounce or something like that, to sort of curb the purchase and the consumption of those goods and to offset the cost of other things. Now, there are a number of different arguments for it or against it. And there are a number of countries that have tried before, and some are successful. There's Mexico has done it with soft drinks. Hungary has done it for a long time with a lot of stuff. Denmark tried, and they failed. So it doesn't always work, but Denmark, when they did theirs, it was more of a logistical nightmare. It was more of a bureaucratic thing than it was trying to maintain the taxes and stuff like that. So the number of different arguments that are there are some for the tax saying that this is going to prevent people from purchasing those things. It's going to get them eating healthier and things like that because junk food is very cheap. It's cheap to produce. It's, the ingredients are cheap and it's cheap to purchase. And so that they think sort of contributes to that. So the argument is that by adding a tax to it, it's going to drop the purchase down, much like it did with alcohol and tobacco, stuff like that. The tobacco, I think it was tobacco or alcohol, one of the two, that when they initially imposed a tax on it, I think it was cigarettes. When they first put a tax on it, strictly for cigarettes, and it was something like 25 cents a pack, then smoking dropped like 25 or 30% or something over a period of years. So for some stuff, it does work. The problem is, though, is that some people say that this unfairly taxes the poor because they spend a disproportionate amount of their money on food. Because we don't really have disposable income to spend on holidays and toys and stuff like that. So there are some arguments for it, there's some arguments against it and stuff like that. I, for one, am for it. And I may have just made some enemies with you. But I'll tell you why. Being up in Canada, our system is a little bit different. I'm not stupid enough to think that by adding a tax to this stuff, it's going to prevent people from buying it. But obesity accounts, this is in Canada and in the U.S., obesity accounts for about 10% of all medical spending every year. So you're looking at about $200 billion worth of healthcare that goes out, that the government pays, just because of obesity, which is a preventable thing. This isn't something like cancer or MS or Huntington's or any of that stuff. This is something that is preventable, that we have caused ourselves. And it's anywhere between $170 and $200 billion every single year that we cost the country. And that's just in the States. In Canada, I don't know how much more it is. But now, up in Canada, our tax is fairly high to begin with. Once you include federal tax and provincial tax and everything else, we don't often have it on food. But overall, we look at about 13 or 14% tax on everything. And I know that a lot of you are just probably shocked at that. But the thing is that I can go into a hospital at any time. I can go in, say, 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, walk in and just go, I feel funny. And have them spend the entire day doing blood work, give me an MRI, a CAT scan, have a team of doctors look at me, stay in a hospital all day long, At the end of the day, I can walk out and they'll say, okay, we haven't found anything for you. We've done an EKG. We've done a brain scan. We've done everything that we possibly can. They've completed everything. They can do a biopsy. They can do everything that they need to do. Tissue samples and other samples and everything else. And I can walk out of there and I haven't put in a single penny. So that 13 or 14% tax to me is more than worth it for being able to still be able to pay my bills and not be homeless after going into a visit for a hospital. Now, there are some things up in Canada, like if you want a private room for a hospital, then you are going to pay for that. But if you're just staying in the hospital and you don't mind sharing a room, that's free as well. So it is a really, really good system. But I'm still contributing to 10% of the amount of money that the government shells out on a yearly basis. So if they were to say, okay, we're going to put on another, like a large tax, it's going to be an additional 5% on top of everything else for anything that is deemed junk food or unhealthy food, like chips and cookies and candy and stuff like that, I would gladly pay it, because it's not like everyone contributes to the healthcare system. Our taxes go into that. But when you have a specific group of people that have a behavior that is causing an additional cost, I don't think it's too much to ask to have them contribute more to that same system, because it's something that is easily avoidable. And again, it's not going to be one of those things that, I'm not stupid enough to think that it's going to stop people from buying it. And it's not the government saying that, oh, you shouldn't eat these things and you're not allowed to eat them. You're allowed to eat whatever you want. They're still saying, no, we'll still sell them. I mean, as long as it's not poison, then we're okay. It's just that, just like smoking and just like alcohol, there are additional costs attributed to it. So by adding that in there, people are still going to buy it. We're still going to pay for it. We're still going to eat it. We're going to eat the shitty stuff that we eat all the time anyway, no matter what they put on there for taxes and everything else. But I think that to me, I think it's fair that they ask us, saying, you are the cause of an additional 10% of the cost to this country, specifically for this reason, because you're buying these things. So I don't think it's too much to ask to throw on another 5% tax for it. Now, it's never 5%. It's always something insanely small. The numbers I've read were roughly 1 penny per ounce in for soft drinks and cookies and stuff like that. And there are some countries that have done it, and they're doing fairly well. I don't know if it's actually helped with obesity or anything, but it does help offset the cost that we're creating. For example, the reason why they put taxes on cigarettes was because it increased the amount of lung cancer and emphysema and problems like that. So yes, I think it's fair that they should add more tax to those, because it's causing an additional problem. And again, it's one of those things that's preventable. It's the same thing with a carbon tax. When they impose a tax on that, if we're going to be polluting things and it's going to be costing money to clean things up, then yes, we should be contributing more to it. They aren't saying that we can't eat what we want to eat or do what we want to do. It's just simply a matter of them saying, you can do what you want to do, but there are consequences to what you're doing. You're imposing an additional $250 billion almost to a debt in the healthcare system. So that's about 250 billion. That is quite a bit more than 200 billion. It usually falls somewhere between 170 and 210, I think. So we'll say 180 billion dollars a year on average is what we're adding to it. So paying that little bit extra doesn't seem like a lot. Now, inevitably, it sort of comes back around again to people saying, well, the government's telling me what to do, and this is a tax on the poor and everything else. But the thing is, even if that's true, even if it is going to primarily be paid by people that are below the poverty level, that is still a choice that we need to make. And there's more and more people that are living below the poverty level than ever before, because the poverty line just sort of hasn't moved. It's nowadays what used to be considered a fairly good wage is still sticks you below the poverty line. Minimum wage, I think, still actually is below the poverty line in the majority of places. And up in Canada, we have a fairly high minimum wage. It's 10 something an hour. But those costs are still, they're still there. Whether we like it or not, we are the cause of them. And I know that there are some of you out there that are probably thinking, yes, but I don't have any of those problems. I don't cause those problems. Well, it's the same with, people drinking and driving. You may not drink and drive. You may not even drink. But those costs are there. That's why they have an additional tax on alcohol, because it does cause other problems. Same thing with smoking. And I'm not shitting on smokers and drinkers or anything like that. I'm just simply stating a fact that the things that we do have consequences. And for the vast majority of us, the stuff that we eat causes heart disease. It causes strokes. It causes any number of problems, diabetes. And because it's causing those, these aren't sort of inherited things that we're getting. These are diseases that are being caused strictly by our eating habits and our lack of activity. It's simple numbers. The same thing that we said at the very beginning of this vlog, that the calories that we're putting in are far higher than the calories that we're putting out. So of course, we're just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's to a point where you can understand why governments are looking at this, saying this is a group of people, and obviously we aren't the only ones, but this is a group of people that are causing an additional $180-ish billion a year, strictly because they are buying this type of food, and they spend the majority of their time in inactivity. So it makes sense to say that, okay, if these are the foods that these people are buying and eating all the time, it's just high fat, high sugar, just junk food, then I don't see what the problem is in them adding a tax on that. It's something that I would gladly pay if it means that, I'm a big believer in you sort of get what you pay for, and you should be responsible for what you pay for, which is why I don't mind our high taxes, because I get quite a bit out of it. I get good healthcare out of it. But in this case, if I'm causing part of that, $180 billion a year, then yes, it is my responsibility to put in a little bit more than other people to sort of offset the cost that I'm creating. And there is that temptation, I know, to say, well, this isn't my problem. I don't cause that. That's not fair. How come they don't have to pay for it? Because they aren't the ones causing that extra money every single year out of the government. So it's sort of fallen through again because too many people complain about it. It usually falls in the range somewhere between 70% of people are against it and 30% are for it. And that seems to follow quite frequently. That, both sides of the aisle in the government, they both sort of support it. It has its detractors and it has its supporters and things like that. But generally speaking, people seem to be against it, which doesn't surprise me, seeing as 2/3 of our population is overweight or obese to begin with. So of course we're going to say, no, that's not fair. I don't want to pay more for my snacky cakes. But again, it's going to be something that's so small that it might deter some people from buying it. If you're going in and saying, oh, I don't want to pay that, that's too much, then it's still going to help. It's going to help someone, at least somewhere, even if it's just one person, maybe pick a healthier alternative. But considering the fact that you can get entire boxes of cakes for $3, if they were $3.25, or if it's a 5% tax, then it's an extra 15 cents, that's not going to make or break you. That's not going to be the determining factor in whether or not you purchase junk food and eat it. But that 15 cents divided amongst the millions of people that are out there that everybody's paying into would help offset the cost that we do create when we go in with, heart disease and coronary disease, just all sorts of problems that I said before. But it's one of those topics that when I first started this vlog, I wanted to sort of touch on because it was sort of at the forefront back in February. And every few months, every 4 or 5 months, someone somewhere brings it up again. And I think it's something that they really should be doing. not just to sort of stick it to the people who eat junk food, because I'm one of them, because for me it would be salty stuff. But just the fact that there is a responsibility. No one likes paying taxes, obviously. I mean, we have federal tax, we have provincial or state tax, we have income tax, we have all sorts of things that we pay taxes on. But for something like this, I do think that it's justified. And the same way that we would pay a carbon tax, or if you had a vehicle that was constantly belching out, this is going to sound a little ironic. Okay, let's start this again. If you had a vehicle that was belching out even more toxic substances than they currently do, and we've all seen those, someone that starts up the car and it's a big plume of black smoke and it just never seems to go away. If every car was like that for a specific model or make, and they said, you know what, these pollute 20 times or even 10% more than every other car out there. So if they said we're going to impose a new tax on them because we need to, it's a higher carbon tax on those so that we can help clean up the air and prevent, do things to sort of offset that pollution, then you probably would say that that was a fair thing to do. And it's the exact same thing. It's a 10% increased. Bleh. There's about 10% of the overall yearly budget that goes into healthcare. Or that sort of 10% of the total cost is imposed by us because we're eating this food and because we aren't exercising. And it's our sedentary lifestyle and the high fat, high sugar content of what we're eating that is causing the health problems. And then we have to go and get taken care of. And that cost needs to be taken care of some way. And if this was something that was hereditary, or if every person had it, or if it was something that couldn't be helped, if it was something environmental or things like that, but it isn't. It's because we are choosing to buy the foods that we're buying. And whether it's something as simple as, raising it so high that people don't want to buy junk food anymore, that it's an occasional treat again, which I don't think is ever going to actually work, or putting enough tax on it so that it may not affect people, buying it, and that it may stop it, but it's going to help with the cost that they're imposing, then by all means, I think that they should. It's one of those things that if it's our responsibility, if we're the ones causing it, then yes, we should be the ones that are taking care of it as well. And no, again, this is going to start a whole discussion as to, no, the government's supposed to do this, or the government is bad or good, or, big government, small government. It's going to cause a whole bunch of problems in the comments. But that's what we're here for, is to start these things up. So, where this is sort of our first scheduled topic, we'll start with that for this Monday. And sort of go through the comments, leave your opinion, whether it's for it or against it, and your reasons for it. Hopefully it's not something as, no, I don't want to do it because it's stupid and I don't want to pay money. Have a reason for it. And again, no one likes paying taxes, but when you look at it objectively, it's one of those things that you think, yeah, we kind of cause it, so we should probably help offset it. That's my opinion anyway. Your opinion may differ, which is good, because you don't want to have everyone just agreeing with you every single time, smiling and nodding, going, yeah, you're right, because it's boring. So for right now, though, take that and discuss amongst yourselves as you would. So you can either do it in the comments or in our MyFitnessPal group if you want to create a new section there for it. But in the meantime, that is it for this video. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. And in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.